Welcome to Salary Negotiation Q&A, hosted by the UMass Amherst Alumni Association. Just to give you a few details about the people behind the scenes that are helping to monitor the chat boxes. My name is Karen Schultz-Battistoni. I am the Director of Alumni Volunteer Relations. And with me is Laura Freeman. She is the Constituents Program Coordinator. So the two of us will be monitoring the chat box during the session if there's anything that you need. To connect with us through chat, in the bottom of your screen, you should see the little chat and then also the raise hand. The raise hand feature will just help you to flag us down if maybe there's a lot going on in the chat and we haven't responded to you yet. Feel free to hit the raise hand button. When you chat with us, you can choose to chat with the whole audience and the speakers, or you can choose to just chat with the speakers. It's your choice. For the session, we are recording it. After we record the session, we will add closed captioning to it, and then we will send you an email when it gets posted onto our YouTube channel and onto our webpage. For tonight's session, for all attendees, your microphones are on mute and your cameras are off. We will just be enabling cameras and microphones for the panelists tonight. Next, I'm going to introduce our speakers. So tonight's panel, we have Bill Bean, class of 1970, and his MS he earned in 1975. He's the president of Green Planning and Coaching. We also have Mary Hayward with us, class of 1990 with a master's in education, and John Sanford, class of 2010, the assistant director of employer relations at Tufts University. So I want to welcome you all for coming tonight and for being willing to share with us in this session and in this format. So the format for tonight's session is going to be Q&A. So as people registered, we asked you all to submit a question if you had one about salary negotiation into the registration field. So we are going to start off the session with taking those questions that were submitted. During the session, feel free to add additional questions, follow-ups, clarifications into the chat box, and Laura and I will bring those questions forward to the speakers. Just want to acknowledge that we're definitely in unique times with COVID-19 happening and many people working remotely, many people job searching, and just lives are in transition. So we are all pulling for you and hoping that your situation is going to be going better. We also want to just bear in mind that the information you're going to receive today should be used in coordination with other pieces of information as well. We can't possibly know your whole situation and every facet about you. So make sure that you're also talking with any mentors that you might have. If you're a student, talk with the Career Services Office. If you're an alum, you can talk to the career counselors or also talk with our alumni advisors. There's many different resources to talk to about this because I know we're only going to touch briefly on this topic in the 1 hour that we have, just because there's just a lot that happens in salary negotiation. All right, so with that detail behind us, we're going to move forward and focus on our speakers. So the way we're going to start it off is we're going to start off with just some general questions about salary negotiation. Like I said, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box as we go down. And then as each panelist starts and answers their first question, then they will also introduce themselves a little bit and give you some details about their background. So welcome, John, Mary, and Bill. Thank you for joining us tonight. And the first question we have is a little bit of contextual with this time period. So during this time period of COVID-19, do I still have leverage to negotiate a salary? And John, if you can lead us off on this one and introduce yourself as well, please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is John Sanford. I graduated in 2010 as a French major. I went on afterwards to have some kind of odd jobs. 2010 wasn't a fantastic time to graduate. And then a couple years after I graduated, moved into an admin role at a consulting firm in San Francisco, ultimately wound up in tech recruiting. I was in recruiting at Facebook for a couple of years, and then I moved over to recruiting at Twitter, doing all the non-engineering as well as the engineering hiring for universities, so interns and new grads. So I'm not as formally experienced or trained as Bill or Mary, but I have sort of the other side perspective there on negotiating. So with that being said, so the question is, during all these things that we're seeing right now with COVID, do you still have leverage to negotiate? I will keep my answer short and sweet here. The answer is yes. We will talk through some of those things as we talk tonight. Obviously, every person's situation is a little different. Different industries are impacted differently, but short answer is yes, you definitely still have leverage.
All right, awesome. Thank you, John, for helping us start off with that, because that's a question I think that underlies a lot of this. Is this really still relevant, right? So the next question goes into a little bit more kind of setting the framework up. For a lot of people with salary negotiation, sometimes I think it's a concept they're aware of, but they're not really sure what happens when and who gets to do what and who doesn't get to do what. So Mary, you authored the salary negotiation booklet that we shared with everyone who registered. And if you can just take us through some of the steps of negotiating so that we can have a few ideas about those main kind of focal points of the process, I think that'll help people as we go through the questions.
Sure. My name is Mary Hayward, and as you see, I got my MED in 90. 90 was a really rough year to enter the job market too, John. So I have 25 years as a resume writer, career counselor, and salary and interview negotiation coach. And it's a field that I still really, really love. So I'm just going to hit the high notes. I'm going to just go over very, very briefly what's in that booklet. And to just say that the system that I offer, one of the things that makes it different from other ways to approach salary negotiation is that it is a collaborative system. So often we see salary negotiation as adversarial, and this is a different approach. So basically what you're going to need to do is, one, you need to know what the value of that job is in your geographic area. So especially young students, they'll say to me, I want to know what I'm worth. So it's not about what you're worth, it's about what that job range is. Okay, so this is information you need to know. The other thing is the negotiation is based on you, your qualifications in the job, not if you've got, heavy student debt. Those personal issues have nothing to do with it. So in short, you're going to identify what I call your bargaining points. These are the things that you have that are above and beyond what is required in this job description. And then you're going to get ready to do 1 or 2 rounds of negotiation. And this is all outlined in the booklet. But again, the big thing to keep in mind, I think, is if you approach this from a collaborative point of view, which means that you're going to get the cooperation of who's ever on the other end of the negotiation, you stand a far better chance of success. And as my dad used to say, you get more bees with honey than vinegar. So this is the nice approach.
Okay, so then Mary, a follow-up to that is, what is one of the biggest mistakes people can make when negotiating salary? I think often people are concerned about making a mistake and then the whole thing can just go away, perhaps. So what would you say is a big mistake?
Yeah. So I do want to talk about this fear that many people, and particularly women, have, that I don't dare to negotiate because they'll take the job offer back. And so I really counsel people to think about this. The organization, it doesn't matter, profit, nonprofit, education, doesn't matter. The group of people that conducted this search have hours and hours of time invested just to get to consensus, okay? So they have, they're put all their eggs in your basket, okay? And short of streaking naked through the workplace, they're not going to take that job back. It's happened so rarely, it's not even statistically significant. Okay, so it should never be a fear. It just should never be a fear because it just isn't realistic. And so you want to approach this from the point of view of you're bringing added value. And if you know your added value, you can go in there from a position of strength. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So then the next question is, for someone who's recently graduated and they're working, but they've only been working for a shorter amount of time, how would they go about asking for a raise? And John, if you can lead us out on this one.
Sure. I also forgot to mention before what I do now, which is that I work at Tufts University on the employee relations team. So I do career advising for undergrads and grad students, and I help employers recruit at Tufts. So that's what I do now. So still do a lot of negotiation work. So for this question, asking for a raise when you're more of a recent grad, I think there's a number of things to consider. So why are you asking for a raise? Are you in a role that is under market based upon outside data that you've looked at, maybe on Glassdoor? Are you not at parity with coworkers who are in a similar role? How long have you actually been there? Have you been there for 2 months or have you been there for 2 years? There's a number of things to sort of consider. I think as sort of a broad answer to this, I think the best way to approach it would be to consider what data do you have that is informing you that you are behind where you should be, and when is the best time for you to leverage that in your organization or with your manager? Do you have performance evaluations yearly or more than yearly? That's often a really good time to bring up, what you contribute to the organization, and how you would be paid at market. This one has a lot of different pieces. I would say that, if you've only been in an organization for a few months, unless you are like really, really behind what you should be at based on market data, it's probably not going to get you very far to say, oh, I've been here for 2 months and I've worked really hard, give me a raise. Again, unless they have you doing 3 jobs and you're working 80 hours a week, then maybe it's worth a conversation. But there's a number of things to consider there. You definitely can ask for a raise, but it's about timing and it's about knowing where you're getting that information from that's telling you why you deserve a raise. Do you know that you're under market, or do you just think that you're working hard and want a raise? So yeah, that's my initial take on that without more sort of details.
Yeah, no, good things to think about, though. It's definitely a matter of balancing it all. So thank you, John. The next question we have, I'm going to turn to Bill for. So this one is, I heard that if you want to negotiate for a higher salary, you need to compare your role and pay to that of others. How do you figure out what you're worth and how much other people earn? You're on mute right now, Bill. You're on mute.
How's that?
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, my name is Bill Bean. Double graduate from UMass. The first time I graduated was in 1970. That was actually a very good time to get a job if you wanted to work for the U.S. government. So I was number 2 in the first draft lottery, spent the next 13 months in Korea. But it's very interesting. I've learned a lot, traveled quite a bit. Then I went back, and in 1975, I got a wood tech degree, wood technology, and went from there to International Paper Company, which was a Fortune 500 company in Manhattan who was looking to get into the wood products industry. So my background fit well, worked there, moved around a bit there, and came back to Massachusetts in 2000. Was with a company called Trust Choice and was an outside salesperson in 12 states in the engineered lumber industry. So I've got a lot of background in wood products and engineered lumber. Eventually for them managed the Northeast and all of Canada for a couple of product lines. So I'm familiar with Canadian opportunities as well. And then I got some certifications in career coaching, and I started my own business called Green Planning and Coaching, and also got certifications in green and sustainability. So I have career coaching, executive career coaching, and retirement career coaching, which is now an industry. Coached through the 2008 crisis, where similar to today to some degree, people didn't just lose their job, they lost their career. That was the financial crisis. 3,000 people in Boston got laid off in the financial industry. They were never going to work in that industry again. So there are some similarities where people want to change careers. And since 2006, I've had this company called Green Planning and Coaching. I do strategic planning for entrepreneurs and small businesses, and also quite a bit of coaching. I work with the University of Massachusetts. I have taught at UMass Amherst, Worcester, and also in Boston at Suffolk Online. So as far as, if you want to hire a higher salary, you want to compare your role, Mary did the best job I've seen by having all of the websites that will tell you exactly what those positions are paying. And you can go take a look at those and make whatever comparisons you want on the different websites. But the biggest thing is to try and figure out your own value and try and do it quantitatively if you can. Talk about what you're going to bring to the party. And it will make a difference whether you're interviewing for a job at a new company or whether you're in an existing company. But being able to say, I increased this account by this many dollars, or just be quantitative and prove that you are delivering value and you deserve to be making more money relative to what you've done your research as well. And as John had said, try and build things into your performance reviews so that they don't have to guess what you're trying to do. You can set objective goals with your existing boss. So I think those are the important things.
Okay, great. The next question I have is, the person says, I feel I have the experience to move into a higher salaried position. How can I effectively upsell my skill set into a higher salary? Bill, do you have thoughts on that one?
Well, again, it's about thinking about your value. In big companies, they usually have very specific ranges for position levels. So when I was a division manager for International Paper Company, if you were going into a specific job, you had a range, and I had no ability to be able to change that range. There may be some other things that you can find that you can negotiate besides just salary. And as you go into your performance reviews, you may be able to build in things like additional training or things like that. But those are the things that you want to think about, is how are you going to add value so that your boss can go and fight for you. And it also depends what your relationship is with your current boss. If I had people that needed to have more money or were deserving of a promotion, we had very open and honest discussions. And I would say we talked about early on, Mary mentioned that it doesn't really matter what your need is. If you have bills and stuff like that. But I think there is one situation where that may be a factor, and that is if you think you're worth more money and it's going to force you to go look elsewhere, somehow giving an indication that this is serious and that they have to consider whether it's worth losing you if they can't find a creative way to work with you, I think that would be a benefit.
Okay. So the next question that we got in through the registration questions was, how do you respectfully ask for a higher salary without coming off as rude or cocky? I think sometimes tone can be something that people want some help with some phrasing on how to navigate. John, would you be able to take the lead on that?
Sure. I would come back to the first thing that comes to mind is what Mary was saying. It's largely about your approach. You don't want to think of negotiation as an adversarial interaction, because that reads when you're going in thinking like, okay, I'm up against this person or these people, that comes across. And so you want to come at it from a very collaborative standpoint. And you also want to rely on the data that you have that's supporting why you're asking for a higher salary, right? So if you have information from Glassdoor, for example, which is a great resource, if you can rely on data and you have sort of dispassionate, emotionally removed, like supporting evidence alongside saying, framing it in a positive manner, you're going to be much better positioned to negotiate without coming off as arrogant, right? Because I think some of the things that people worry about are statements, they envision going into a negotiation and having to say like, well, I think I'm great and yada, yada, yada. But if you're able to say, okay, I did some research, here's what the data says, here's where my qualifications put me, and this is why I believe that I deserve this number. That should put you in a much more comfortable position to operate from. And like Mary said, approaching it from sort of a positive standpoint of, if it's a job that you're about to take and negotiating for, framing it as, I always say like bookend your conversation with a positive statement. So start with, first of all, I'm super excited about this offer. Thank you so much for offering it to me. Make your case. And then at the end with a positive statement again, I'm really excited still. If you can get me to the number that we talked about, I'd be happy to sign. Start and end with sort of positive framing and rely on your data. And I think it can sort of help you feel more confident about talking without worrying that you're coming off as arrogant.
Karen, can I jump in?
Yeah, Mary. Sure.
So this question is a little ambiguous, I think, because I'm not sure if the person meant asking for a higher salary when you're within a company already on the job, or asking for a higher salary when you're negotiating. So it was a little unclear to me.
Yeah.
But I'm behind everything that John said. Really super good points. One little thing I would add, a really smart practice is, and it's a good thing to start when you're young. As you're going along, anytime you're on a project or you're doing extra work, you want to be keeping a log of any accomplishment that you've had, okay? And what happens to us naturally is, especially in busy workplaces, which I think is everywhere now, we have challenges that we meet all the time, and we'll solve a problem and get everything straightened out, move right on, we don't even think about it, okay? When there's something noteworthy, at the end of the day, go into your Word doc and just type up a little summary, so that then when you're asking for a raise at like a performance review, or because you're, as John said, you're underpaid and you really want to have this addressed, then you've got these key points. And I often will say, now I'm sure you'll agree with me that, on this last project that we did, I did, put in a lot of extra hours. It was my help, this and that, so when we use these phrases, goes along with John's bookending. When you use these phrases like, I'm sure you'll agree with me, okay? We're just establishing that this is a collaborative endeavor. We're in this together. It makes all the difference in the world.
Okay. So the next question we have is, can you talk a little bit about how gender may play a role in negotiations? And Mary, if you can take the lead on this one.
Yeah. So in terms of gender, Karen and I did a webinar last year on Equal Pay Day. So very sad to say, what was it, April something, Karen? And that means that women in general
have to work. Mid-April. Women in general have to work 3.5 months into the next year to earn the same amount of money that men have earned in the previous year. Okay, so we don't want to see this as adversarial.
But nonetheless, right now, women are earning 82 cents to the dollar for the same work that men are doing. When we start to look at ethnicity, it's worse. I'm not going to go into that, but that is a factor as well. And so I've long said that at the rate of social change in 80, it was 76 cents on the dollar. So, since 80, and let's do the math, folks, 40 years, we've gained 6 cents an hour, okay? Really pitiful social change. So my thing is, women need to learn how to negotiate. We have to move the needle, okay? Clearly, we can't count on the government, man, whatever business. It hasn't happened, and it's not going to. So spread this news, share that booklet with all your friends. The more women that pick up this skill, that learn this skill, and get in there and fight for their own value and their own rights, I think that's what's finally going to move the needle.
Okay, great. We've got a lot of questions coming in the chat box, which is great. So I'm going to try to keep pushing us forward so we can get to as many of them as possible. So the next question is, who has the upper hand? What do I do when a salary is tied to a job title, maybe in the name of fairness? And this ties into a question that came into the chat box where the person said that they're going back and forth in a negotiation process now, but the current person in a similar role is not past the midpoint of the salary range, so they won't give them anywhere past the midpoint of the salary range for this position. It sounds like it's a university level position. So in terms of salary and how it's tied to job title, who has the upper hand, and any insights on that, Bill?
Well, I think there's different categories for who has the upper hand. They may have the upper hand in not being able to offer anybody more than the current people. But I guess one thing would be to determine, first of all, if the current person is being fairly paid. If they're not, there may be an issue there. The other thing is, I think the candidate may have the upper hand by negotiating something other than just the salary. So you should know the salary range, and the higher you can do in the beginning, the better off you are, because all future increases are a percentage of your existing salary. So the higher you can start in that range, the better off you are for future increases. However, being the boss and hiring people, that puts me in a tough spot, because that means in the future I'm not going to be able to give you the raise you deserve because you're going to tap out the end of that range. So that's a double-edged sword. But even if they're stuck with they can't give you more salary, they may be some type of a signing bonus or another bonus that is sometimes at their discretion. You may be able to ask for more vacation, although sometimes that's difficult to get as well. A big thing that you may be able to get is an earlier review. Typically, reviews are annual. So if you can say, look, I'm willing to be satisfied with that starting salary, but I'd like to be reviewed in 6 months versus a year, a lot of times they may be able to put you on a different track. And that's a big difference, because you'll get, if you do well, and have a performance evaluation that specifies what you have to do and make sure it's quantified and nail those goals, and you may be able to get that raise 6 months earlier than you would have. You also might be able to build in specific training. If you know, here's where I am today, here's where I want to be in 5 years, I need to pick up these skills, I'll accept that salary, which is not as high as I believe I deserve, but I'd like you to finance the education in these ways so I can gain the skills to add the most value to the company. So those are the types of things where I think the candidate has an upper hand, even though on the salary itself, the company may have the upper hand.
Okay, great, thank you. So now we're going to turn a little bit into negotiating, where we're focusing of this in the hiring process, so not necessarily with the current employer. So several people are asking a few details because often people are asking you about a money number. They want a number from you as the candidate. So the question is, I've heard that it's illegal for employers to ask about salary history, but I've still been asked this verbally and on job applications. What should I do? And John, if you can lead on this one.
Sure. So it is illegal in, I believe, 17 states, and it can be illegal locally as well, like at a city level. It's not illegal everywhere, obviously. Even when it is technically illegal, as it is, I believe, in Massachusetts, there are still other questions that they can ask to get around it, like what is your salary expectation, which is not technically illegal. The thing that I advise here is to obviously take into account what you're making currently, but take into account as well what the market dictates. So if you're moving into, if they ask you what your salary expectation is, which is not illegal to ask, and they ask you what your expectation is, consider what you're making now, consider what you'd like to be making, and look at the role and the responsibilities there. And compare it in the market using a tool like Glassdoor to see what that role may pay at that level of experience, and use that to form what you're going to say your expectation is. So even if I'm making 45 now, if I go to fill out a job application and they ask me what my salary expectation for the role is, and I'm able to see, oh, this role, based on the research that I've done, probably pays at least in the mid 60s, then you should say that that's your expectation, right? So you really want to base it off what you're seeing in the data online. It can't hurt to, I mean, this kind of depends on your own risk aversion. For me, I would say it can't hurt to aim a little higher, but you don't want to go outrageous, because if you have a salary expectation that's like, 25% above what the market pay is, then they're going to take a look at it and say, this isn't right. I will also say that I've seen organizations ask that question, but they don't necessarily factor that heavily when they're making the offer. Like other points that have been made, each organization has internal salary ranges or salary bands, and those tend to be fixed. Now depending upon the role in the organization, it's a range. So there is room there for movement, but I would say you should be able to get a relatively good idea for what that range is using those tools online. And that should give you a sense of what you're comfortable putting. If someone asks you, what do you expect, what is your current salary? And they ask you that in a state that it is illegal, I would say that it's okay to say, I'm not comfortable disclosing that. We can talk about salary when we get to that. If they really push, I don't know, if they really push, you could back up to say, technically the question you're asking me is not legal. That kind of depends on what your comfort level is there, but yeah, you have some options there. I would say always come back to the data in terms of what you're going to say your expected salary is.
Okay, and then piggybacking on that one a little bit, when they ask about expected salary, you explain kind of how to handle that. Now, if someone offers you something which is a lower salary than you expected, how do you respond, and how can you ask for more without stating a dollar amount? I don't know, Mary, if you want to jump in on this one, since I kind of had a few questions combined into one for time's sake here.
Yeah, so
So
I just
the salary,
to go back.
so it's lower. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to go back to the expected. So especially if they ask you what's your expected salary early on in the process, it's best just not to answer that question. And the way to do that is to say, I'm really not prepared to discuss salary at this point. I'd rather have more of an opportunity to explore this job and to present my qualifications. If they keep pushing, then you can say, well, would you be making an offer? So you can throw something back at them and accuse that they're out of step here. Because the guru of salary negotiation, Jack Chapman, says, The first person who figure loses the negotiation. So if you give them a figure early on, it is going to compromise your capacity. Was there more parts to that, Karen?
Yeah, so the other part is you're offered something lower than you expected. How should you respond and ask for more without stating a dollar amount? This one came in the chat box.
Again, you use this system around the bargaining points. So we want to be, and this ties in with what everybody's saying, we want to be presenting the value without dollar amounts attached to it, okay, heading into this thing. Because, as John says, that organizations, even when they quickly print what the salary structure is, there's still flexibility, okay? So again, if you start talking figures early on, it is going to compromise your ability to get the very best offer. I think you just, you want to be, again, looking at this from the point of view of, in a very concrete way, what are your bargaining points? What are you bringing to the table here that is above and beyond what they're expecting or what they're asking for? And then you say, once you present your first or second round of bargaining points, and then you say, you know, in consideration of this, I was really hoping for a higher offer. And then you just shut up, okay? Don't dig yourself a hole, don't explain it, don't go on, just stop talking right there. And then the ball's in their court. Now they have to come back with a figure. So it's a better way, I think, to go about it. And my research has shown that you will get much higher results. And kind of feeding off what Bill was saying earlier, an important thing to remember is whatever salary you negotiate in on, that impacts all your future earnings with that company. So if you fail to negotiate, you can lose tens of thousands of dollars in a couple of years' time. So it's really important to make the best deal you can.
Okay. So the next question, I'm jumping around a little bit from some of the questions submitted based on what's coming in the chat. So the next one I'm going to go to is, aside from other offers, what are other forms of leverage you can bring to the table for salary negotiation? And Bill, if you can talk a little bit about forms of leverage besides another offer.
Yeah, so we talked about some of the things that you could ask for that weren't just salary. Another thing is to be able to, if this is obviously about a new position, probably with a new company, do the research on the company. Find out exactly what they're trying to do. If it's a public company, look at the inside of their annual report. The CEO will have a list of exactly what their mission is and what they're trying to achieve. Take a look at press releases. Find out what they're expecting to do and what they're announcing as great things that they're doing, and then match your skills to it. It's about value. Figure out how your skills can help them get where they want to be. And there's one other thing. A lot of times with older candidates, they can't tell you that you're old, but they can tell you that you're overqualified. And a good response to that, if you're in that position, is just explain to them the more important that job is and the shorter time frame that they have to achieve results, the more important it is for them to have somebody that's seen where the landmines in the past, and it makes you worth more money because you can do it better and faster.
Okay, great point. So then the next question is it appropriate to counter on a second offer an employer provides? So the employer is just given a second offer. Is it fine to counter on that? And John, if you want to take the lead on that.
Sure. There's two scenarios in which I could see this happening. One in which when you negotiated, a specific number was thrown around. They went back to see if they could get that number approved. They couldn't, and they could only get you, $2,000 instead of $5,000. Short story, I think it's okay to negotiate. But again, what are your points? Like what's your leverage? What data are you working with here that supports what you're asking for? What are your own qualifications? And it's also about, the specifics of the situation. Were you asking for, $10,000 more because that's what the market says and they only got you $1,000 more? I think it's okay to also ask, like, or say, I'm a little disappointed that we weren't able to get me closer to this number. What's some of the justification there? The other thing I would say is if no numbers have been discussed from your end on what your expectation is, and they made you an additional offer, and you said, oh, that's still not high enough, and they went back and then came back with another bump, and you say, oh, that's still not high enough. And Mary might disagree with me here, and Bill might as well, but at that point, it might be a good idea to say, here's the number that I want. Because if you go back and forth a lot, at a certain point, they might become frustrated thinking, well, what number is going to get the deal done, right? And they probably at that point, if you declined and trying to negotiate a second or third time, they probably would just ask you, what number would close this out for you and keep and make you happy. But I would absolutely say negotiation is definitely not a one-step thing. And once they come back once, you have to say yes or no. Like Mary said before, I personally have never seen an offer pulled because you're trying to negotiate. Like Mary said, I think it's so incredibly rare that it's not statistically significant unless you do something like wildly unprofessional or like unthinkable, they're not going to pull the offer. So the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, sorry, that's our final number. Like, let us know. But absolutely, it's worth trying.
Let me just jump in real quick, please. So the other great thing to do when we head into round two, okay? And so round two, you've been in your career for a period of time. Entry level, you're not going to go to round two, okay? But so beyond that, a good thing to do looking for. So this is really good language. We're in the same ballpark right now. I think that we're really getting close to agreement. But I think, again, you'll agree with me, and then you're going to hit them with a couple of more bargaining points. And, and so I really was hoping for a higher offer. Send them back. When you're able to keep it loose like this, they have to work for you. They have to go back and negotiate with their managers and try to get the best offer. So yeah, that language is really good, I think.
The we language for sure.
Yes, the we, thank you, John, the we language. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I'm going to combine a few questions because we're getting a few in and we're running close on time. So there was a person that indicated that the level of work they're doing, their role is being a director's assistant, but their work level and type of work is more of an assistant director. So they're trying to figure out how to negotiate change of title and a bump in salary. It's a smaller organization. They've been there for 8 years. And then kind of combining with another question somebody had where they said, I work at a nonprofit and the organization is dealing with financial struggles and I'm trying to figure out how to ask for a raise. So thoughts on either one of those, anyone?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with nonprofits, and I sat on the board of a homeless nonprofit for 6 years. And when we started out, it was tough work. And over time, we got the board to hire more development, and we really focused on improving those salaries. So that's a real common notion that when you're working for a nonprofit, if it's a struggling nonprofit, you should not ask for more money because that's bad and people will think badly of you. But that's just absolutely not true. One of the things you can do in terms of bringing this up is help to raise the consciousness in the nonprofit in terms of they simply have to be doing a better job. And if that means that they need to be doing more fundraising, more grant development, but you deserve to be making a salary that is commensurate with your efforts and your dedication and your passion and your hours. So I suggest to people, don't let the nonprofit thing ever be a reason not to ask. But again, you know, be respectful, try to get them into the conversation, yeah, don't sit back and feel that you'd be taking money from applicants. It's just not a good mind frame. What was the other piece to that, Karen?
Yeah, so the other piece is the person's been doing a higher level work for the past 8 years, and they're trying to get a new title and a better salary.
Yeah, same thing that John's talked about, Bill's talked about. Yeah, this is the same thing. If you're going to go in and you want a title changed, and I see this all the time in my practice, it happened to me personally as well. You want to then have very concrete substantiation for why this title should be increased. And if the title's going to be increased, then you should be able to ask for a bump in salary. So once again, you need to have that concrete data that where you can show that you are contributing more than what this job requires, and you're contributing more than you're being paid for. And you want to have recognition of bringing that added value.
Karen, can I say one thing there?
Sure.
Keep in mind, I'm a planning guy, but and I've been in a manager's seat. And a lot of times, if you just go in, they've had to make, particularly in this current situation, they've had to make some pretty radical changes. And they may not be able to just flip things around overnight. And, you know, revenue may be an issue. But looking at it from a planning perspective, and it also helps you show patience, is to say, look, I'm uncomfortable with this situation. What I'd like to do is sit down with you and design a transitional plan so that after a certain period of time, I'll be able to be fairly compensated for the job that you want me to do. I know you're in a crisis mode right now, but let's put a plan together, the two of us, and figure out how we get to the other side so that I will be fairly compensated and I can continue to be excited about the work that we're both doing.
Excellent. And this goes with the John, with the we thing. Let me say too that in terms of COVID, so just real quick, this takes a second. So in terms of COVID going on, what Bill was saying, what the other thing you can do is say, listen, I know these are extreme circumstances. Can we schedule a time, 3 months, 6 months, where we could sit down and talk this through? So just that little bit is a good achievement, and you've got it on the radar, and it's planned to be addressed.
Yeah. So some people have indicated in the question box that they don't necessarily get regular performance reviews. And one question specifically says, the person in charge of my salary works at a different location and doesn't know me well. How would I communicate my worth in these circumstances?
I'd say
anyone?
Thing. Tell them that that's customary in most industries, that it may not be the current tradition in this company, but what you would like to do is put together a realistic set of objectives that they could work with you on and agree on so that you will be contributing the most value to the company. You want everybody in the company working towards the same goals and making decisions that are going to help achieve those goals. So even if you're at a different location than the person that's doing it, stepping up, putting together a plan that's concise and articulate and business-oriented, not emotional, succinct and compelling, that could be your best bet. And remember that negotiating is a skill, and it's used in many of the activities of any company. So by demonstrating to them that you know how to negotiate and be professionally persistent without being overbearing, that can help your case as well. But I'd put a plan together with the person that's doing it, and you can take the first step and outline the framework.
I would also like to add
Okay.
really quickly, this is the importance of documenting what you do and what you think your accomplishments are, like Mary and I think Bill mentioned as well, because when it comes time to have that conversation, if you can put together some sort of self-reflection to walk through what you've accomplished against what your responsibilities are, that's going to be really strong for you going into those conversations.
You should keep a professional portfolio, just like an artist or
Yeah.
a painter or anybody else. You keep track of the things that are important and add value.
Yep.
So I know a lot of these questions are interlocking, so I'm going to offer another one. And then I know some of it we've already touched on, but we haven't touched on all of it. So if we can just touch on the new parts. So this person says they're looking to ask for a raise in their current role, and they're trying to work on the phrasing so that they do not look desperate if their employer says no. So they're concerned about repercussions if the company doesn't give them the raise. Like, how might that be handled if, you know, tone or, you know, things like that. I don't know if anyone has thoughts.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to what we've all said and what Bill just touched on specifically is being able to present your points unemotionally from, you know, a very tangible standpoint, having your accomplishments documented, knowing what the scope of your role is and how you've gone above and beyond that, having that documented and being able to sit down and present that with supporting evidence is really important. And if you can do that, then you're able to have that conversation from an unemotional standpoint, right? If you don't have that, then that's when you tend to approach those conversations like, I feel like I've been working really hard and that I deserve more. It's a lot of like feeling, right? There's not a lot of like tangible points to hit. And so again, coming back to the documentation piece, and sometimes like you can do that retroactively. Set some time, even if you don't have that, but you want to do that, set some time aside to, you know, walk through that exercise by yourself. Start it now, even if you don't have it complete. Come back to it as you think of things, right? But yeah, having that supporting evidence is what allows you to have those conversations from an unemotional place.
Your goal is to have a succinct, compelling business proposition.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to do one more question, and then I think we got to turn to wrap it up. I know this has been a really active topic, so I appreciate everybody that's put everything in the box. So we have a question. As we move toward a more global workforce with more virtual work and less dependency on job location, how do you think location might play a role in salary ranges and expectations going forward? So it sounds a little bit like if I'm living in Massachusetts, and now I'm being hired for a company on the West Coast, cost of living is a little bit different. What are some things that, you know, I should maybe be aware of if I'm negotiating a salary while I'm working virtually?
I think that those things, although they're interlocked, they're also somewhat separate. So the remote thing that tends to be more of a benefit, although COVID is definitely changing that, but it tends to be more of a benefit in terms of the disparity in cost of living between one place and another. Companies have that all worked out. So you want to, I think what you can do in regards to remote work is use that as a bargaining point. So if you know that you can do a portion of this job, maybe even the majority of this job remotely, then you want to negotiate for that to be part of the structure. But it's different, it's separate from the actual salary negotiation. Usually, even though it's going to happen concurrently.
Okay. So now we're going to turn to a few of the different resources I just want to mention to everyone. So we've come to the end of our Q&A. So I'm just going to mention some of the resources from the Alumni Association. And then we're also going to offer a final moment for each of our speakers to give kind of a closing thought or, you know, one more empowering statement to really energize us and instill your confidence to take on this process, because it is really a skill. So career resources, through the UMass Amherst Alumni Association, we have a program called Alumni Advisors. So you can connect with people virtually for career conversations, resume reviews, LinkedIn reviews, and everybody is in there because they have chosen to be in there and give of their time. So it's a great resource. And it's also really helpful because you can maybe connect at people in an industry you're interested in, at a company you're interested in, and maybe they might even offer you some advice in terms of, hey, here are some leverage points at my company that they use for salary negotiation, right? Maybe they would offer you some of that insight that you can't get somewhere else. We also have career counselors. So we have 6 different UMass alumni. Bill is one of our career counselors. And the career counselors work with alumni and students. The first consultation is free. Additional consultations, you get a UMass alumni discounted rate. So it's a great resource to have that one-on-one focused conversation. Most of those conversations take place virtually. And then that way you can really focus on your situation and get some answers to help move you forward. To connect with us for events, go to umassalumni.com/events. You can see our on-demand webinars on there. You can also sign up for events. If you go to umassalumni.com/career, that takes you to all of our career resources. So there's a job board, there's tools to organize your job search. There's the recordings of the webinars. We did previous salary negotiation webinars with Mary and John, so you can watch those recordings as well if you say, I want to grab up some more information and just feel more empowered to take on this process. So now I want to turn it back to our speakers, just offer a bit of thanks, because it's, you know, it takes a lot to say, I'm going to step up and I'm going to answer the questions no matter what happens, and be willing to think on my feet and work well together. And you definitely did that. So closing thoughts from the 3 of you on things to think about as we go forth and take on salary negotiation. Whoever wants to start is fine.
Okay.
So whoever picks the number first loses, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, so feeding right along with that, the research shows that 85% of the people that ask for more money get more money. And I have a corollary that says 100% of the people that don't ask for more money get nothing. Buckus. Okay, so 85%, you don't find those odds anywhere in life. Okay, so you got nothing to lose and you have everything to gain. And I just wish everybody out there just every success with all your negotiations. Yep.
Thanks,
John.
Mary.
Yeah, so I think one of the things is being, again, an anal planning guy. Figure out where you are now, figure out where you want to be in 5 or 10 years, and every discussion that you have with people, understand yourself, what you're trying to achieve over time, and build that into your discussions, whether it's building your performance objectives, which are no joke. I mean, that's a plan, and you should make that a very quantitative plan. And once you do that, you'll have more confidence, and you'll find that that confidence will help you with salary discussions. So, again, there's people that are available. The university provides alumni coaching, and with the initial call at no cost. Take advantage of that. These people are doing a great job for you. And thanks very much for including me, and I appreciate it and wish you all well. Call me if you need me.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bill.
I would echo all those things. And like we said at the beginning, no 2 people's situation is the same. So take all the advice you can get, especially from people who are willing to give it and who have experience doing it from multiple angles. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want. I'm happy to field any side questions that you have. My full name's Jonathan, so Jonathan Sanford. But yeah, feel free to add me if you want. I'm happy to help anybody out who needs it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John, Bill, and Mary. The event page for this event is still up on the page. And then if you click on any of the speakers, it'll take you directly to their LinkedIn pages. So if you want to head over there tonight, it'll still be up before they pull the page down in the morning. We'll be sending you an email asking you to just give us some